As the level of tension that exists between Ukraine and Russia continues to rise, the government of Japan has taken a bold step in an attempt to foil the aggressive strategies that are being employed by Putin. This high-stakes confrontation in the East has everyone's attention since it could determine the future of Ukraine. Will Japan be able to carry out its job successfully and contribute to the rescue of Ukraine, or will Putin once more emerge victorious? As the happenings continue to play out, the entire world watches with bated breath. After more than a decade of seeking to improve relations with Russian President Vladimir Putin, those efforts were shattered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There has been some cautious discussion in Japan on whether or not it should forsake its long-standing rejection of nuclear weapons in light of the brutal reality of the nuclear-armed nation able to attack with impunity. Japan's business community will face increasing pressure to follow the lead of Western companies like BP and abandon their lofty investments regardless of the resulting financial losses. The Tokyo bureau chief for The Economist, Noah Snyder, joins to examine the causes of Vladimir Putin's grim war in Ukraine, the extent to which Japan is helping Ukraine, and how the war will reshape relations between Japan and its northern neighbor, Russia. Japan's foreign policy rarely undergoes significant changes due to its focus on maintaining and strengthening existing relationships and economic ties. This consistency has been helped by the fact that the Liberal Democratic Party has been in power for the majority of the post-war era. To keep up with its G7 allies, Japan has implemented a variety of economic measures quickly in response to the shock of Russia's more aggressive attack. Fearing that a lack of deterrence towards Russia and Europe would provide Beijing fodder for its efforts to captive Taiwan and the Japanese-administered Senkaku Islands, the Japanese government has shown an unusual resolve to act. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced export limits on dual-use technology, including semiconductors, and a freeze on the assets of Russian officials, as well as visa revocations and financial sanctions against 3 Russian banks on Friday. Japan had already banned the sale of Russian national debt 2 days earlier. Japan was conspicuously absent from Saturday's joint unveiling of additional economic measures by the other G7 countries and the European Union. The Kishida government, on the other hand, has closed the gap over time. They are now working together to cut off access to the SWIFT financial messaging system for several Russian institutions. Japan has put new limitations on banking with Russia's central bank and sanctioned Putin on a personal level. In part, the holdup can be attributed to cautiousness on the part of bureaucrats. Before taking any action, policymakers want to be sure they have considered all of the repercussions and would hold wide-ranging discussions inside the government and with private sector companies that could be affected. As with the country's economy, Japan's government is disproportionately small. Around 280,000 people are employed by the national government, whereas the United States has over 2 million. To make matters worse, Japan suffers from a severe lack of skilled workers, and the country's stifling bureaucracy makes it difficult to quickly learn and execute new policies. Yet, Japan has historically been reluctant to meddle in the affairs of other nations. The US occupants wrote a constitution that explicitly forbids the country from going to war, but this has broader implications. Japan usually makes neutral appeals for peace talks in foreign disputes. Human rights abuses against China's Uyghur minority have prompted the United States to ban cotton imports from the region, but Japan has been slower to follow suit. Like China, it has done little to stop the crackdowns in Hong Kong. There is little doubt that catastrophic events, especially the rapidly evolving situation in Ukraine, have influenced the rising rhetoric out of Tokyo. Kishida has become more steadfast in his criticism of the Russian invasion, calling it a significant violation of international law and a major violation of the United Nations Charter. Russia's actions have been called aggression by both Kishida and Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi. Aggression is a violation of international law, thus this is very significant. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who oversaw efforts to strengthen trade ties with Russia during his almost 8 years in office until 2020, appears to have changed his mind. As an increasing threat to Japan, he has framed Russia's invasion as a major challenge to the world order that must not go unanswered. On his talk show, he advocated for changing Japan's non-nuclear policy and adopting an arrangement similar to NATO in which American nuclear weapons would be stationed in Europe but still under American control. Abe stated recently on television that while Japan is a party to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and has its own 3 non-nuclear principles, it should not consider taboo talks on the realities of how the world is kept secure. Kishida was quick to rebut his remarks, stating in Parliament that such an agreement would be unacceptable given Japan's pledge to never acquire nor create nuclear weapons or permit their presence on its soil. Although Abe is still a powerful force in the Liberal Democratic Party, he has taken a much harder stance than he did when in government, when he met with Putin more than 20 times and declared him a dear to me as a partner. Abe has set as one of his key, albeit unlikely, goals convincing Russia to return 4 islands it seized in the latter days of World War II from Japan's northern tip. Right-wingers in Japan are drawn to the concept of reclaiming the so-called northern territories. Russia's position hardened after 8 years of Japanese diplomacy, and the country's constitution was revised to prohibit territorial compromises. Long-running but fruitless negotiations to terminate the conflict and formally finish World War II have been put on hold as well. Nonetheless, Japan's search for energy security was one of the most pragmatic reasons for mending fences with Russia. Japan was severely impacted by the oil shocks of the 1970s due to its heavy reliance on foreign energy sources. The nuclear tragedy at the Fukushima facility in 2011 scuttled a long-term plan to prioritize nuclear power. In 2003, Japanese trade companies took a 30% share in the development of the Sakhalin oil and petrol field, making it one of the largest beginning ventures. Deep water drilling was used in the extremely pricey project, which was carried out off the coast of Sakhalin Island, Russia's easternmost island located 25 miles from the northern tip of Hokkaido Island, Japan. Russia's first large-scale liquefied natural gas LNG project, Sakhalin-2, followed shortly after. In 2006, Russia used coercion to remove Royal Dutch Shell as the project's lead partner. While Mitsui and Mitsubishi, both Japanese corporations, were required to surrender half of their equity shares, they chose to move forward with the project with the support of a $5.3 billion loan from the state-backed Japan Bank for International Development. That looked like a great fit between investments. To reduce its worrying reliance on the perpetually unstable Middle East, Japan wanted to diversify its energy sources, while Russia required finance and technological experience. A representative from Gazprom praised the efforts of their Japanese partners in building the intricate LNG project. There have been further events, most notably the development of other Arctic LNG projects. Japanese flagship firms like Toyota are eager to seize the worldwide leader in sectors such as hydrogen production, ammonia production, and carbon capture, all of which were recently disclosed as part of a partnership between the Japanese Commerce Ministry and Russian oil giant Rosneft. The Japanese Commerce Ministry expressed hope that under this agreement, it is believed that Japan-Russia energy cooperation will be further expedited in 2021. Such multi-year, multi-billion-dollar endeavors are notoriously difficult to cancel despite rising pressure to do so. BP, a British oil firm, has declared it will sell its stake of 20% in Rosneft. Shell then announced that it would follow suit, saying that it would no longer work in any capacity with Gazprom, the state-run petrol company, and that it would sell its approximately 28% investment in Sakhalin-2. Japan finds this quite uncomfortable. The anticipated $25 billion price tag for the BP decision will make Japanese corporations think twice about following their Western colleagues out the door. Far more at stake is Japan's safety. Abe, while in government, had gone beyond what many believed was possible for Japan, given its pacifist constitution which forbids the use of force to settle foreign problems. If Putin keeps threatening the nuclear option, however, Japan may have little choice but to agree to host American nuclear weapons. Abe commented recently, implying that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could have been avoided if the country had preserved the nuclear weapons it received after the Soviet Union collapsed. Change has come rapidly in some ways for a country that has long taken pride in being a force for a world free of nuclear weapons. So, Putin's error of judgment may have far-reaching consequences in East Asia. Instead of the energy investments Russia had hoped for, it may instead face increased US nuclear missile deployments on its eastern border. That's all for the video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more.